What's up everyone, and welcome to another cryptocurrency market update. In these videos you will learn how to use technical analysis to forecast price movements in your favorite cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and others, and also see where we are looking to buy and sell these crypto assets ourselves. So we're going to start off with Bitcoin today, and then we'll also talk about DOT since we talked about that in yesterday's video, just to give a quick update on that trade and what is happening. We will look at that. So let's start off with Bitcoin in the monthly time frame. Monthly time frame, we are looking pretty bearish here, folks. We had a bearish spinning top candlestick here last month in April, and subsequently we opened this month and we have dumped ever since. So it's not looking good for bullish continuation here in the short term. You know, when we were in April and this candle closed, ever since that point we've been talking about for the last 2 weeks how we needed monthly drawdown before we could continue to go up higher from here. And so that's what we're getting right now on the monthly time frame. We are coming down to try and set a higher low somewhere above the low of 9,800. So if we're making bets, if we're placing bets, where is it going to bounce? There's no monthly support levels in here. You can see it was just a straight run up in with white candles. So in terms of a monthly support level for us, we're going to need to go to the weekly time frame, which is one time frame lower than this one, and see what we have going on. So what kind of action are we seeing on the weekly time frame? If we look at this, we can see that we have a very significantly bearish candle here. Very bearish. Emphasis on bearish. There's a significant amount of selling volume here. You can see it's above all of these other previous selling volume candles that we've had. And it's going to close in 2 hours, and it's going to most likely close below this low from the 19th of April. So if it does do that, it increases our odds. We've been talking about this weekly zone in between the R2 pivot and the R3 pivot. If we close below the R2 pivot, likely we will move down to the R1 pivot over the next week. And this R1 pivot goes from about 38,000 down to about 28.9. So if we're looking to be a buyer and we're looking for that monthly zone that we're going to be bouncing off of, if we think we're going to bounce above 9,800, which I think is pretty decently likely to say that that's going to happen, because for us to just go all the way down below 9,800 without having a monthly bounce is not very likely, in my opinion. I think it's far more likely that we will have some sort of a bounce. It's just a matter of what that bounce is going to look like. So we will see what we get in this weekly close. If we close above the R2 and this low, that's like the most bullish scenario. Since we're already trading down this low, we're not going to close, with a white candlestick. We're going to close with a red volume candle like this. That's guaranteed at this point. So at this point, it's going to be, do we close below the R2 and the low, or do we close above the R2 and the low? And so if it's below the R2 and the low, that's the most bearish scenario. And if we close the next subsequent weekly candle below this low, that will be a confirmed weekly downtrend with a high, low, lower high, and then lower low pattern. And a confirmed weekly downtrend is not good for bullish continuation. So let's just be very clear on that. That is going to carry the momentum downwards on a weekly time frame. So that's not what we want to see. But what we do want to see, if we are a bull, is we want to see a bounce next week off of this blue level if we go down to it, and then a close back above this key low. Then we're okay. We're not dead in the water just yet. In terms of this market cycle being over for the bulls. But every time that we get one of these confirmations on the bear side of things, we need to increase our chances in our heads, our probabilities, and say that it's more likely now that this is developing into the end of this bull market cycle. And so we need to consider that, because although no one wants to consider that fact, we have to consider that that's a possibility with each subsequent confirmation that we get. First, we look at the daily trend. Okay, we're now in a daily confirmed bear trend. We've been in that for a few days, and we'll talk about that in a second. Then we go, okay, we know we need some monthly consolidation because we just came down off of a monthly high. So now it's a matter of setting that monthly higher low somewhere. And now on the weekly, we're saying, okay, if we get a weekly confirmation on a weekly bear trend, that's further confirmation that we're probably eventually going to go through this blue zone, and we're going to have to go into the next stage of the market cycle, which unfortunately is the bear market. But it's not really that unfortunate if you know how to play it, because you can actually make a ton of money going short in a bear market. So you can make just as much money going short as you can going long. So it's just as much of an opportunity on this side of the market as it is on this side. So that's just something to be aware of. So let's go to the daily time frame now, and we'll look at what we're dealing with there. Daily time frame is operating below our main support zone that we've had since March 4th. So this zone has been tested once, twice, 3 times here, and then now this 4th test, obviously we've pushed through it. So if we close below this zone on the daily time frame today, because we already closed below it yesterday, then this is going to end up being, this gray zone is going to end up being a resistance zone. You can see that we didn't even come up into the previous zone that we talked about going short on the other day. We did not even get an entry into that zone. I didn't, on this resistance zone here or this gray resistance zone here. We just went down and we've, continued the bear trend of lower highs, lower lows. So once you confirm the trend, like we saw right here, you can see it was very quick to continue that trend with a lower high and then a lower low. And so now we're going to see how this daily candle closes in the next 2 hours and see if we turn this gray zone into a resistance zone. If we do, then we can say, okay, we're going to go short on this resistance zone with our stop loss above, and we're going to target this blue zone down here. If we want more in terms of a lower time frame entry, we can go down to something like the 4-hour time frame. So if we look on the 4-hour time frame, this is an interesting development. Now I want to point this out. If we look at the 4-hour time frame, you can see we're making these lower lows. Here's a low, here's a low, and here's a potential low. You can see that we're making higher lows in the RSI. And that is what you want to see if you're a bull, because that means you're getting close to a bottom. But if you're a bear, you're still noticing that we're still making, well, this made a higher high for a second, but then it went down for a lower low. So if we end up making a bear pattern on the 4-hour time frame, which we didn't make here, let's look at something like the 8-hour. Let's look at it real quick. 8-hour? Yes. Okay. So the 8-hour time frame, you can see that we made a low, high, higher low. So this is where we were starting to look like we were in business for the bulls. So we made a high, low, lower high, and now we're making a lower low. If we close this 8-hour candle below this low and the next subsequent 8-hour candle below that low, this white candle is going to be a resistance zone. If we go to the 6-hour time frame, same exact thing. This white candle will turn into a resistance zone. So we'll see, but you can see their RSI is saying we're losing strength on these pushdowns in price. And so that's something to keep in mind. 3-day time frame, well, we pretty much had increasing bear volume there, so that's not good for continuation, or not continuation, but reversal. This 2-day candle looked really good with increasing bull volume, but then subsequently the next candle pushed right down below it and negated that as being a short-term bottom. So that's not good for the bulls. So we need to, like I said, change the trend on the 4-hour time frame. For us to go back to being bullish, we need to change the 4-hour trend. But if we look at some of these trend following indicators, like the super guppy, for instance, you can see this is in full bear mode with the red EMAs and the dark blue EMAs here, trending downwards, meaning the momentum is pushing the price further down. If we look at the Ichimoku Cloud, same thing. This is the most bearish scenario that it can be in. Red cloud, Tenkan below the Kijun, price below both of those, and both of those below the cloud. So this is the most bearish scenario that you can have, and you can see that this became valid right here. So if you went short, the moment this became valid, which was right here on the close of this candle, subsequently you can see that that would have already given you about 11% trade. So that's something to keep in mind, and you just continue to ride that trend until you start to see the trend change, which right now it is not, it's clearly not changing just yet. we're going to have to see a low, high, higher low, and then higher high pattern. So that's what we're dealing with on Bitcoin. We'll see where the weekly candle closes. Let's jump over here to DOT real quick. This is a trade that we talked about yesterday. The reason we talked about this trade was because of the daily trend change that we saw right here. So if we look, I'm just going to get rid of a couple of these things so we can see it a little bit better here. So if we look at just the price action here, I'm going to remove this pink line. You can see that we had the low, high, higher low in comparison to this one, and then higher high pattern that we needed with 2 candle closes above this high right here. So that makes this last down candle where people are selling their DOT a buy zone. This is where people are buying their DOT. So they're buying it back, at least, from when they sold it down here, because they see that we're in a confirmed daily bull trend. At least that's the idea behind this being a support zone. So if we say our dark blue zone is our support zone, then we can say, okay, if I believe that this trend is going to go up, then what are the trend following indicators telling me? So if we look at the Ichimoku Cloud, we can see that this is actually in prime bull position in contrast to Bitcoin. Bitcoin was in prime bear position with the 4-hour time frame. Right here we can see the tank and the blue line crossed above the red line right here, the Kijun, and then both of them are above the cloud, at least on this candlestick they were, and now this candlestick, the Kijun went back inside the cloud for a split second here. And then we have the cloud being green, and where the price is currently above the Tenkan and the Kijun. So though this pattern is the most bullish pattern for continuation for DOT going higher, if this does end up breaking out and Bitcoin ends up recovering, because we'll need some sort of recovery on Bitcoin, I would imagine that a reasonable target would be the R2 at the minimum, which is up here at about 59. Jesus, can't even talk. Need a bit of water there. $59, and you can see that's about a 45% increase. I know it seems crazy, but if you're looking at this on a daily trend time frame, that is a reasonable target for it in this all the way up through the end of May. So that's what we're going to be looking for. If we look at the weekly time frame in terms of what is the weekly looking like, the weekly is seeing good volume in terms of bull volume. It's kind of neutral in terms of the candlestick. We went above this high, but we came back down below. We went below this candle's low, but now we're back up here. So it's pretty much neutral in terms of is it bullish or bearish. So we'll see what we end up getting over the on the weekly candle close. But overall, like, that daily trend looks very nice in terms of potential continuation. So we'll see what Bitcoin does, and if this does end up going bullish in the short term, if Bitcoin can pull up from here and start to make a move, DOT is going to be one of the first movers, in my opinion, to make a move higher. You can see today's daily candle is already starting to kind of have people buy the dip. You can see that with the longer lower wick. So if you're reading candlesticks, that's what that's telling you. So that's all I got for this one, guys. If you like this video, give it a like down below and subscribe for future educational content around cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. And if you have not already checked out our beginner technical analysis course on Leutheria.com, definitely check that out. There's a link for that in the description below as well. We currently have a 20% discount running for that program for our early Leutherian supporters like yourself. And in this program, you'll learn everything from how to use volume to analyze different cryptocurrencies, how to read trends, how to read candlesticks, and everything else that you need to know to build the foundation to make consistent profits trading cryptocurrencies. So that's all I got for this one, guys. I will see you guys all tomorrow. Until then, onward and upward.